Hey friend, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. I am your host and fellow worthy warrior, Danielle Damrell. On this show, we are creating space for genuine connection by unifying women of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences. So grab your favorite drink and get ready to listen as we take a deep dive into our stories, making sure to honor and protect them in the process. We will also uncover the threads of creative processing that have already played a part in each of our lives. When we know how to utilize this as a skill, we can continue growing into the joy-filled, triumphant women we are created to be. You are created worthy. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Created Worthy. Today, we're doing something totally different, but I'm really excited about it. It was actually somebody else's idea. We are doing a real life roundtable, and I am joined by two more of my favorite people. Both have been guests on this episode or on this podcast before. We have Nikki Pointer, who courageously told her story, and her story has been #1 on Created Worthy. And I have heard so many people so impacted by Nikki and her bravery. And then we also have Morgan, who, if you don't know Morgan by now, then do you really listen to Created Worthy? Or
Yeah,
because Morgan is mentioned a lot. She's been on here 2 or 3 times. And she is the podcast producer of this show. She listens to all of the stories, and then she's the one who makes the final cuts and listens to everyone's story in entirety. So other than me, she's the only other person who hears everything. And it is just an honor to be here with both of these incredible women. And today we are just going to be real about life. The goal is to process reality. So this is kind of like a live creative processing session in a lot of ways, where our goal is really just to share about our current reality, because a lot of people are going through a lot of really hard things right now. It seems like every person that I talk to and Nikki talks to and Morgan talks to is all going through something that is just like hard things. And Nikki, I actually want to read, Nikki, I haven't even cleared this with you. Can I read you the text message you sent me?
sure.
Okay. So a few weeks ago, she sent me a text that said, it's been a minute. We've talked some since then. She just randomly sent me a text one morning and said, we should do a podcast episode, a real, raw, unfiltered one of how stupid life is right now. I don't know why, but I woke up and grabbed coffee, and I've listened to a handful of people in the last 24 hours just talking about how shitty life is right now, and also how alone they feel in it. And immediately I was like, yes, because like I had been walking through some stuff that week, as every week. Morgan had been walking through some stuff that week. Morgan, for context, that was the week after you were living with the family that you were nannying for. So that it was during that week.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we just talked about how she just felt, actually, we had a phone call after that, huh, Nikki? Where we just like talked about how you felt like God was like, talk about real life, talk about reality. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and we want to be real about them, even in our own lives, because our own lives are all that we know the full story of, right? But the beauty of community is that we get to share our lives with each other, and in that, innately, since we are created for connection, we feel like we're not alone. So that's our goal, is to process reality so that you feel, you listeners and us together, feel like we're not alone. We're reminded of that truth. So yeah, thank you guys for being here.
Yay.
Yeah, so let's loosen up. We were talking for like 30 minutes before the podcast. And then I was like, nope, we're starting now. Sorry. Like we're recording now. And so yeah, let's get into it. Let's just start with a little bit of an update about like maybe we start with just the last 3 months.
I'll go first. Last 3 months. Wow. What's the last 3 months? January, December, November.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, in the last 3 months, I unfortunately received a 60-day notice from the people I was renting at. Like it was like the mother-in-law quarters of the house, I guess you could say, or however people want to put that. But
Yeah.
the apartment I was renting was connected to a big main house. So the landlords lived on the property with us. And there was, issues and stuff last year financially and with getting rent paid on time and, things like that. And they just kind of were over it. Like they were like, we've given you guys enough chances and you can't pay your rent on time. And it's been an issue. So it's just easier that you move on to somewhere else. And rightfully so. I mean, I totally understood that. But yeah, it kind of sucked. It wasn't, I'd love to take all of the blame, but it wasn't necessarily my doing that got us into that position. So it was really unfortunate that I was put into that position because it was like, yeah, 60 days. I have a problem child who I love dearly, but my dog Titus, I'm sure if you've listened to past episodes, you know that he is a mama's boy and he's got anxiety issues and he does not like being left alone. So normally finding a place for me to live anyways has always been like an issue since having him. So I felt like I was kind of finally in a place where I could have him work, do all this stuff, and then boom, 60-day notice. So what do I do every time I'm panicking in life and I don't know what's going to happen to me next? I run to Danielle. Every single time. She is my safety blanket. So I got a storage unit, moved all my stuff into a storage unit, packed as much as I could in my car that I needed. And I went to Danielle and I went to Colorado. And I was out there for all of Christmas and it was great. We had a great Christmas.
We had such a great Christmas.
It was so perfect. It was like the Christmas I've wanted for years now because when you become an adult, Christmas is just different.
Yeah, Nikki, you have to come next year. We had a chocolate and a cheese fountain.
What?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, hard things happened during Christmas time, but it was also like Morgan and I set a goal to like, we're going to have a good Christmas, right? Like no matter what, we're going to have a good Christmas. Morgan was like, we're having a good Christmas, right? And I'm like, yeah, we're having a good Christmas. So we just put our blinders on.
I don't care if you're not having a good Christmas, but I am having a good Christmas. Like that was just our attitude about it.
Yep. Did you guys have snow?
No.
There was snow on the ground, but it didn't snow that day.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, count me in.
Yes, please come. 2023 Christmas is going to be off the chain. Or hook or whatever the phrase is.
We're only going to get bigger and better every year.
I do have to mention, Morgan, in your time too, you have 3 jobs. You still currently have 3 jobs, but like you had 3 jobs all last year.
Yeah, I did. From my 1-year anniversary of having all 3 jobs at the same time was January 17th or 15th, right around there. That was my hire date for at the hotel. So yeah, that was officially 1 whole year that I've had all 3 of my jobs. So, which I don't know if I talked about that previously when I was on here.
I don't think so, but you should just give us a quick recap of like what hats you're wearing right now.
So I produce this podcast, which obviously
it is kind of a lot on the back end because we have a process now, but it is like we have a YouTube, we have different graphics that go out and different systems to uphold, and the editing portion of the podcast is the most important because the people who come on to Created Worthy know, I tell everyone before we start recording that this is an edited podcast. So if they say something that they don't feel like is meant for the world right now, that's okay. Just say, Morgan, cut that out. And I take note of it, and she makes sure to cut it out. And there are things that are cut out in a lot of episodes. So Morgan is the one who listens to the stories, the only other person besides me who really listens to the stories in entirety. And sometimes those stories, like, it's an honor to help share them, but they take time to process. Like, it's not just like you're sitting down and editing an informational podcast. You're sitting down and editing people's real life stories. And like, that's a responsibility in its own. So I just had to emphasize.
Thanks for bragging about me.
Yeah.
I love it. It's my favorite.
She keeps this podcast running 100%.
Yes.
And we are committed to this. It's like a mission or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ministry.
And I also, not recently, because she's kind of been taking a break or has other stuff going on, but I also was editing and managing another podcast as well, aside from yours, the Balanced Wellness Solutions podcast.
It's a great podcast.
Dr. Courtney Ciccoletti. She's awesome. Go listen to that podcast as well. But yes, I also was doing her podcast. So that is one of my jobs. And then I work at a little fancy motel, or inn and spa is what it actually is. And I do banquets there. And I nanny for a 2-year-old little boy, sweetest boy. He's like my child now. I've been watching him for over a year, and everyone says I'm his second mom. So, and I feel that way. That is my kid. But yeah, those are the 3 jobs I have, and they're all very different. But I've been able to manage it very well. I'm not going to lie, I've never been the type of person that likes having a job anyway. I've always been called a hustler. I like making money on my time and my terms. I don't like having a 9-to-5 job. So the fact that I'm actually holding down 3, I mean, I guess the podcast editing, it is on my time, and we do have deadlines that we need to meet, but for the most part throughout the week, it's on my time. But my other 2 jobs, they are 9-to-5s. So it's crazy that I have kept 3 jobs all year long, considering I'm not even have a job type of person. So yeah, that's awesome. That was I didn't even realize what a big deal that was for me until I got closer to my 1-year mark. And I was like, wow, that's actually a really big accomplishment for me, to hold that down. So that's awesome.
For Morgan. Snaps for Morgan. I started doing that in my the private creative processing workshops. Nikki, you have to come to the next one. We had such a good night.
We'll do.
But we do snaps whenever someone finished talking. We're like, yes, we acknowledge that you just shared something.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Well, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's awesome and it's hard all at the same time, right? I don't know if you had a chance to listen yet, but Leah Khan shared her story on episode 2 and 3 this season. And she talked about how we hold joy and pain in both hands, simultaneously at the same time. And I think that as soon as she said that, that's kind of just been a theme that God has continued to bring up in everyone's life who I hear is this, there's so much joy that we can have in little moments. It's available to us. Sometimes it gets buried by the pain, but if we can connect with that joy at any point and tap into it. But there's also a lot of pain, unforeseen circumstances coming up and just having to navigate and problem solve every single day. And I think that that's a huge thing that I'm learning right now is one day at a time, just get through the next day. So, Nikki, do you want to give a little recap of your last 3 months? Or Morgan, do you feel
Oh, yeah. I mean, the
No.
only thing, yeah, the ending,
Okay.
I guess, to my
No, not
little
cut. Okay.
whatever. Ending to my little cap is I came back from Colorado and didn't know where I was going to go or be living. I kind of was like okay with just being in my car, I guess, because I didn't really like know. And having my dog is kind of weird, but that's why I really love the family that I nanny for. And they like are my family now because they immediately took me in and let me come to their place. And then I got set up with like living with their family. So now I'm renting out my own bedroom through their family members, which is also my family now. So, yeah, at the end of these last little 3 chaotic months, I feel like I'm finally getting to a place where I'm like, okay, we're gonna even out now. We're gonna start to even out. It's not gonna be so lumpy.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see, because the whole reason we're here today and talking is to talk about how life really can be shitty sometimes. So it's not that I'm waiting for the next shitty thing to happen or life to suck again, but it is going to constantly pop up for the rest of our lives. So yeah, I'm evening out right now though. We're
Yes.
smooth sailing.
Smooth sail.
Yes. Nikki, the last time we talked to you, you were raising money to get endometriosis surgery. Did you get that surgery?
I did. I got it in June, the end of June, I think it was. It went great. I think it was about 4 hours long, but they
Whoa.
cut out 1 spots that I had endo all throughout. So
Did you just say 21?
yeah,
Oh my
I think
gosh.
it was under stage 3 by that point. How they rank it. But yeah, I stayed in Atlanta for a week after that and just recovered and then came back to Tennessee, where I continued recovering for the next few months and then started back at work. And so far it's been great. The pain has been like 90% less than what it was. Like I'm able to go and be active and do all the things. So that's been a huge blessing.
Yay. So you feel like the surgery really has been successful. The recovery portion was really hard. I know we
The
talked quite a few
recovery was
times.
awful, but yeah, I think it was successful. I started PT a couple months ago, so that's been a challenge. But overall, yeah, the surgery was really successful.
Yay. That makes me so happy
Good.
that like I know that that was something that was causing you so much physical pain. And honestly, it's so hard to navigate anything else in life if you're in a severe amount of physical pain. I think Morgan and I can probably relate just in different moments that we've had that have been really painful. But like, yeah, when you're in pain like that, like you cannot do anything else. And even just
I
this
was
month, I was thinking about you because I had a really painful period and then Morgan had a really painful period. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this is how I had to live for my whole life, like I would not be able to function at all. So,
yeah, for that year prior, I was lucky to be out of bed like a week out of every month. Like it was pretty intense. But
wow. And was it like pain wise? Was it like really, really extreme cramps?
yeah, it was that, but like what a lot of people don't understand, like you can have endo, like it affects your whole body. Like it can be like they've even found it in your brain, in your lungs, like so it was like I was feeling pain like extreme cramp wise, but it was like an overall like just I don't even excruciating pain. Like it felt like my body was just being crumpled like during those 3 weeks. But yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, praise God for real that you were
Yeah,
able to
it
get that
was
surgery.
definite blessing and yeah,
Yes.
so good.
Okay, so after recovery, you went back to work. Where did you go back to work?
The bakery
Okay.
said the last 3 months. And so in November, I decided there was an incident that happened one night while I was there. And it got pretty intense. And the owner just stood by, which was kind of discouraging. Um, And I just, after it, there was just a lot that I don't really want to say, because I am thankful for the job, and I've worked there for 11 years. So like I have a lot of respect and stuff, but there's just things that I couldn't overlook anymore.
Yeah.
And I had grown a lot, and I just wasn't willing to get paid to just brush stuff off anymore. So I think in that moment, and having not been there while recovering from surgery, I think that was a huge eye-opening point too. Just realizing how far I have come and grown, and just stuff I wasn't willing to put up with anymore. So that was like the beginning of November. That happened, and I was just like, I think I've outgrown this place. Like, I'm extremely thankful for what it's been, but I just think it's time to not be anymore. So I stepped away from that. I didn't really have anything else lined up. I pet sit on the side. So I was thankfully booked through the end of the year with that. And then, rent has been incredibly hard to pay. I don't know what rent is out there, but I was paying $1,400 a month
for basically a studio.
Yeah, just a single studio. And so I was just not working there and just relying on pet sitting. I was just like, I can't keep paying this, and I'm not there. Like, that was the biggest frustration since August through now. I may be at my own apartment like 3-4 days a week or a month. So why continue pay that much when I'm not even there? So yeah, I made the decision last week to move out of my apartment, and yeah, here we are.
And where are you?
I'm pet sitting right now. I'm not sure after that. I have a couple gigs booked through October. So I think March is the only month I'm kind of up in the air. But I'm also babysitting, and we'll just see where it goes.
You're nannying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Danielle does not like calling it babysitting.
Yeah. I'm like, yes.
She tells me all the time. I'll be like, yeah, I'm babysitting today, or I'm at my babysitting job, and she'll be like, nanny, you're nanny.
Well,
and what did you say?
Is it baby?
Okay, but nannies watch babies, toddlers, older kids, teenagers. Nannies are adults who are. Do you have a schedule there?
No, it's just as needed.
You're walking the line.
Walking the line for nanny.
Morgan had a schedule, so I was like, "You're nannying."
Yeah, just as needed. So
Well, whatever. It's a purpose-filled job to raise a child and to help somebody else raise their child. So
definitely.
And it seems like it's bringing you so much joy to be with him.
Brings me instant joy. They're like family. He's like a little nephew. So
I love that.
It's so sweet.
Well, thank you for sharing your real life update. Snaps for Nikki.
You can hear my snaps.
I know. Do I need to snap in the mic?
I know. I'm like snapping up here. You probably can't even hear it.
I know. We won't know until you start editing. Okay. So my 3-month update, let's see. So I'm going to actually just back up to October. I'm going to do 4 months, because I did an update on Created Worthy where I talked about like having a creative director job for the first half of the year. And then things not going well with that. And then since then, actually, a lot of the guests that have been on this season, I met at this event that I coordinated back in the beginning of October in North Carolina, which was just like such a crazy thing, because I had been praying since I traveled to LA in May that God would open more doors for me to travel for work, which is just a wild prayer for me to pray, because as a kid, I was very much like, I don't like traveling. I don't want to travel. I don't like, all I wanted in my life was security. That's all I ever wanted, was like a single place to live. But I felt like when I had my like vision of helping people or pointing people towards freedom. When I was 17, that's when he like shifted my heart and put the verse Isaiah that says, "Here I am, Lord, send me." And I actually got it tattooed on my ankles when I was 18. And now I feel like I'm in the season where he has finally started sending me. And especially with that job, because I'd never been an event coordinator before. So like, talk about imposter syndrome. I was like, this is an event. Like, it was a really big, in my opinion, a big event with a lot of women in the network that I've been in for years now. And I was meeting people that I've talked to online for years. And I was the one coordinating and like putting all the pieces together and making sure things are running smoothly, and like talking to all of the chefs and the hotel managers and everything, just making sure everything was going smooth. And so that was a really crazy event. There was like a hurricane that came through North Carolina at the time. There was a hotel fire. The schedule got completely thrown off. Things always go wrong in events, but like there were some pretty extreme things. And I feel like it still went off really, really well. I was able to like connect with the CEO who was hosting this event, and her team. Her team was incredible, and I'm actually working with them now. But back then, to be completely honest, I didn't get paid to coordinate that event. Of course, she covered like all travel and like food and that kind of stuff, and the hotel, everything for me to be there, but I didn't actually like bring home money for my family. And so when I came back from that event, it really threw me into like panic mode. And I realized really quickly, because I had also invested in some coaching to like grow my business at that time too, because I knew that if I didn't start making a consistent income to actually provide for my family, like I needed to go back to corporate. That's the crux in the road that we were facing, because we've been going through a legal battle all last year, and infertility, all of those things. So that's very expensive. And for me to not be bringing in income even enough to cover the expenses of my business and podcast and everything, like that's what I was facing right after that event, was just like the harsh reality of like, oh my gosh, like even just doing like one-off contract work jobs, which my clients are awesome, but that wasn't enough to provide for my family. So I had a goal that if I didn't make a certain amount of income, I think it was like $2,000 by November 7th, which was the 5-year anniversary of my business, that I would close my business and I would start the corporate job search. And I was like so nervous and anxious about it. But come November 7th, I made just over $2,000 through client work that was coming in. And I had put together a proposal for a collaborative book program that I knew Melissa, the one who was the host of the event that I did in October, was going to be doing a collaborative book. And I was like, I can help with that. I've been studying that for like all year at that point. But I mean, contracts like that, big long-term contracts, like what I learned is that sometimes they take 3 months to actually come to fruition, if they do at all. So that wasn't secure income, but I got some client work. So come the 5-year anniversary at the beginning of November, I was like, yes, okay, I'm finally making an income. It's scalable. It was the end of November that I offered the very first free creative processing workshop to see, like, is this something that people are going to be interested in? That was honestly on the back end part of the reason why I was like, I was excited about these, but I was also really nervous because there is some weight to them, right? Like it does cost a little bit to put them on, and any risk right now is not like, it's scary because if I don't make that back, then I'm hurting my family. So I did in November, I did the very first like creative processing workshop. And then in December, I did it again and I got feedback and people were really excited about them. So in December, I actually was like, okay, if you guys want to do this, I will put together 6 months of creative processing workshops that are paid, in addition to the free one that I'll do every month. as long as I can build a system that makes it not take up a whole lot of time, like I can do that. And hopefully that'll start to bring in some kind of income. Although the real part of me is like, I mean, Morgan knows this, like I would do everything for free, especially if it's attached to like what I feel like my calling is and helping people. Like all I want to do is help people. But I also realize that my time and like skills and what I've learned have value to them. And so I'm trying to step into that place of like, I am worthy of abundance, or I'm worthy of even just security and alone. And so is my family. So yeah, in December, I did the second creative processing workshop. I got a few people who committed to doing it for the 6 months. And then we had Christmas, which we had a lot of people here. And honestly, it was so triggering in a variety of ways. Like every day I felt like the Lord was like, here's something that you're going to have to mentally process now. And Morgan was there for all of this. It was like all these like, I call them little fires kept coming up, of course, like just different things, a lot of stuff I can't talk about right now, but just things that were hard. And then we get through Christmas, we get through New Year's. I'm like working on the back end for the creative processing stuff, just trying to figure out like, how do I make this into an actual valuable offering? Because I've done a lot of things in my business, but I've never put together like a service program like this. That's ongoing and intentional, and creative processing has been on my heart for years and years now, but telling people how to utilize it has been a challenge. And so like I don't know, I've been really like leaning into the Lord and having a lot of conversations, including with you, both of you guys, about like, how does creative processing help you? And like, what are the results of it? And through these conversations, and again, the feedback, it's like, okay, this is like totally God. I'm long-winded, huh? I haven't rehearsed this. See, if I write down, like if I wrote a script for this, we'd be done already. But because I didn't, this is what
we're in the beginning,
free flowing. So that brings us to January. Well, I guess tomorrow is February 1st, but January has been a crazy month.
Dude, wild.
Such a wild freaking month. I feel like I've just been like spinning, but I'm also like, okay, I see so clearly that God, this feels to me like it's a season where God is making some of those puzzle pieces make sense, you know, where it's like, oh, I had to learn that lesson in order to like have any experience on how to deal with this current season. And also like, for so long, I've done so many different things. So people ask like, what does Danielle do? What do you do? And I'd be like, oh, so many things. Or they'd be like, oh, where do I start? Just look at her Instagram. Like, it'll take you a while, but a lot of things. And so that's not super helpful when you're trying to build an actual business offering when people have no idea what you do. So I'm the perfect example of like not niching, and also more importantly, not choosing a core offer and sticking to it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do in this season and in this month, and the clarity that I feel like God is bringing me just through doing the creative processing in a really structured way on my own is like, he has opened this opportunity for me to become a life story coach. I'm going through a certification program to be a life story coach, while I also started the collaborative book program. So I am the collaborative book manager and life story coach for the Burnout to All Out mastermind, full of incredible CEOs and business owners who are scaling their businesses together. And I get to step in and help each one of them tell their stories and get it into writing and feel good about it and feel like they've processed through the entire becoming an author process. Because that is like, if you're rushed, then you feel gross about what you've written and what you shared. But if you can take time to write and really weed out what is for the world right now versus maybe what is for the world later, then you feel honored in that process. And I'm really excited to get to know each of these authors and just help them tell their stories. And it's crazy because I've actually done a similar thing twice, but not in a structured like program. So now it's like I get to really build out this program, and I have guidance and mentorship and training and like a team behind me who's making things happen and taking care of the clients behind the scenes. So it's just a really cool thing. And then I did a public launch for the creative processing workshops in January, and my gosh, that was like so emotionally tolling. I was like having so much anxiety, and I had to promote so much. And a lot of
Did it
people got
remind
scared.
you of like the same anxiety that we had when we came out with Half Hood, Half Holy for the first time? Because I
Yes.
know exactly, like, I felt like I knew exactly what your anxiety was. Because I remember talking to you on the phone, like, before the first meeting was start, and you're like, why do I feel so nervous? Like, I've already done 2 of these free ones, and I'm like panicking right now. And I was like, why? Like, you're good, you're rehearsed, you have your notes, like everything. And you're like, I don't know. I just like, I'm so nervous right now. And I was like, I get it, because that's how I felt when we dropped our first episode. I was a nervous wreck that whole day. Like, I was
And
like, I don't
Nikki,
even want to look at the internet right now.
same
Because,
thing with
like,
you when you shared your episode. Probably that same kind of feeling came up of like, oh my gosh, now it's like public. Like, I mean, doing this publicly, you know? Yeah, she's shaking her head.
Oh yeah, sorry.
She forgets this is a podcast. So I was definitely,
I think I live in that state every day. So I was just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, I really battled through imposter syndrome and more with that, and just like, oh my gosh, these are strangers. Like, am I gonna, like, is this going to make sense? Like, is anyone actually going to want to pay to be a part of these? And like, do I really have to explain why this is valuable? And I learned all those things, and the answer is yes, but how I present the value and like give people the option to join can be in my own unique way. And so I am offering another workshop on February 18th, and on a Saturday morning this time. Why not try something new? Self-care Saturday. And we're going to do the free processing you workshop on a Saturday morning. And I'm just going to do things a little bit differently because I really want to serve. That's really my goal, is however this helps people the most, like that's what I want to provide. So, but all of that to say, January, just real crazy. And I actually called Morgan just a couple days ago because I was like, Morgan, I officially have 3 jobs and I do not know how to handle this. Like, and actually more than 3 jobs, but just 3 of them are paid. And then 2 of them are volunteer work. So just to like clarify, my 3 jobs right now are client work, one-on-one work. So that looks like copywriting and design projects. And then I have the collaborative book program where I'm getting to mentor. Oh, and included in that client work, I work 1 day a week in studio helping my friend Kara Jo, whose episode will come out. Well, it'll have already been out by now, but I work in her design and letterpress studio, helping her put together these really luxury invitations and signage. And it's so cool. And I love it because I get to get my creative outlet out. But that's part of the client work. So copywriting, design, and then in-person work. And then I also am the collaborative book manager and life story coach for the program that I was telling you about. And then the creative processing workshops. So those are my 3 paid jobs right now. And how the pay is set up is like, for the creative processing workshop, like if it only actually pays if I'm actually promoting it. So it's like not necessarily ongoing, but so that just takes work throughout the month. So those are the 3 paid ones: creative processing, client work, and the collaborative book manager. And then I'm also still the Girl Scout leader, which God has shown up so much in that. He's brought an incredible group of moms together who are very communicative. They talk to each other. Some of them, they know that I'm in a really full season right now. And so they've really stepped in. I don't have to do anything for Girl Scout cookies because it is cookie season. I'm going to put the link for my daughter's cookies in the bio if you want to buy some. They will start shipping in February, end of February. So I will, we'll leave that in there. Oops.
Nice.
So yes, incredible group of parents. And then the other is Created Worthy. So yeah, I've been trying for a long time to get the Patreon set up in a way that's like, makes sense. And maybe, I don't know, I just haven't figured out a process for that and like haven't set apart time to set that up well. But I would love to do that so that we can start getting support just to cover the cost of this show. But right now, it's not covered. So it's volunteer ministry. I feel like I'm serving. I love Created Worthy. I'm not giving up on it. I guess this would be my passion project. But there's my very long update. You are welcome.
Love it.
I never expect it to be any less than 10 minutes.
Well, it was probably like 20.
It's because you always have a lot going on. And I don't, and it's more than just your job stuff. It's more than just the work you do and how you make money. Like, I feel like we all right now have a lot going on. Like I might be leveling out and I'm smooth sailing right now, but like up here, no. That's not happening up here. My life around me, my physical life, like that's starting to like smooth out and be okay. But like now it's like starting to be all bumpy up here. And I'm like, whoa, why is this happening when I'm like finally getting to a point of like stability and security and like I'm building all of that and we're getting closer and closer every day. Why is this going crazy now? Why is my mind like starting to lose it?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, my update could have been a lot longer too, but I always I try to be mindful because I'm also a talker. Once you get me talking, I might not initiate the conversation, but once you get me talking, I can't stop. So normally people are they're always trying to cut in because they're like, is it my turn for a sentence yet? And I'm like, no, hold on. I still have a half an hour.
You're an Enneagram 8.
Yeah. Like, wait your turn. Did I pause? No, I'm still going.
And I don't care what you think.
Yeah. And wait for me to finish. And then maybe it'll be your turn. Maybe. If I feel like I want to listen. So yeah, there's just always something, and that's why we had a good conversation about it the other day. And I really hope you wrote down the things that I said, because that's one of my issues right now is I'm having a problem with like remembering things, which is not me.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like, I remember everything. Like and especially I have a very like picture memory. I can picture things very well, faces, stuff like that. And I'm not going to lie, it was Danielle that kind of made me realize it, but I got into a car accident right before I went to Colorado, actually. And I did hit my head really hard on the rear view mirror, and I actually shattered my my windshield. That's how hard I hit it. So I may or may not be having issues from that, and that's why I'm struggling with memory right now. I don't know. I haven't been to the doctor for it, haven't even mentioned it to any professionals yet, but I'm struggling a lot with memory and being on track. I could have a schedule and reminders and like I feel like I'm all over the place. I feel like mentally I'm just, I don't know, disassociating with everything. I have no idea, but yeah, that's where I'm at in life right now. I'm like, everything else around me seems to be smooth, but I don't know why I don't feel smooth. Like, I just don't. Yeah. Everything feels chaotic all the time.
No, that's like such a good point. Nikki.
Yeah.
I know that you relate to that too.
Yeah. I ironically feel like I'm the complete opposite. I feel like for once my mind is quiet and I'm like all smooth
Really?
sailing, and my life is a chaotic fireball in the going. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're flip-flop.
yeah, you were describing that, and I was like, oh, I just go with it. But I'm like walking through fire every day, and I'm like, cool. Like last week, got in a freak accident and had the worst concussion. Like the latch broke. I was running around, but so I ran into it, but the trunk was slamming shut. So it like completely smashed my head. And
Oh
then
my God.
happened. Something else happened that day too. And I was just like, this is cool. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
Jeez.
that was what I was talking about earlier. It was like, oh my gosh, I web indeed it, and they were like, you could have a slow brain bleed. I was like, oh my gosh, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Is that
And then
not
when you have anxiety and stuff like that happens, yeah, it makes everything 10 times worse because it's always like immediately some kind like you're dying.
right?
That's how it is for
Right.
me. Like one little small thing, which that's not a small thing, that's actually a big thing. I've never had a concussion before, so even that
Well,
is like,
you don't know
oh
that.
my gosh. I don't know. Yeah, see, Danielle's like, you don't know for sure. You might have. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I mean, your car accident seems pretty traumatic.
yeah. And I think I just had so much adrenaline in that moment because I had just gotten into a car accident that I didn't realize like everything that I didn't realize that I had hit my head so hard until like that night when I laid down and I was like, ow, my forehead hurts. And then like 2 days later, I noticed that my whole windshield was shattered right where my mirror is. And my forehead stamp was in the mirror.
You probably had a concussion.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's wild.
Oh my gosh.
for sure. Yeah.
So
So in the different states that I think we're all in, I also feel very disassociated right now. I didn't have a concussion. I have not had any head blows recently. But
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. That's right.
Yeah.
And you never know. It could happen today, tomorrow. You never know. Okay. Now I'm giving myself anxiety. So here we are. But how do we get through each day? Because I know that we can talk about goals and dreams, and we do, and a lot of people do, and I think it's good to have them. But also, like, there's something to be said about just like getting through the next day. And I think that's where we're all at, is like, we know that tomorrow it could be worse than today. It could be better. It could not exist. Like, we know that. And we know that God has got us. Like, all three of us love the Lord. We love Jesus. But we also have gone through a lot of trauma. And we have brains that feel special, I think. Would you all say that's true? Like, yeah, like things are a little bit, they're different and difficult, and even if you don't have trauma, like, seasons get hard, but how do we get through just the next day? Like, Nikki, how do you get through just the next day?
Honestly, some days are a real struggle where I'm like, well, not to get too dark, but I mean, I've had a lot of days lately where I'm like, I don't know, it's a lot. But I guess when it becomes that dark and low, I'm just like, God, but God has, but God, that phrase, but God, like,
Morgan, turn around right now.
This is Danielle's design, actually.
But I did not tattoo it. Just
you're not gonna be able to see it unless I pull my shirt up, so this is awkward.
Tilt the camera down.
Hold on. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you see that?
Oh, that's awesome.
It says but God. That's exactly what it says. And like, Morgan came up to me 2.5 years ago, and she's like, hey, can you write but God on a piece of paper? I'm gonna get it tattooed on my body.
That's awesome.
So
it was actually a funny story to that tattoo. We were in your closet in your bedroom recording an episode for Half Hood, Half Holy of our irrational fears. And that's like, we asked each other, how do you deal with your irrational fear? Like, how do you manage that? And I was like, but God, like, I always think like, but it's okay because God will have your back, but God's got you. Like, that's what I tell myself all the time when I'm in a moment of panic or I'm like freaking out or anxiety. Like, I'll just sit there and repeat over and over again, it's okay. God's got you. God's got you. God's got you. And I just say, oh, so yeah, that's how that whole tattoo came about. We were recording in your closet because that's how it was for Half Hood, Half Holy. We were learning. We didn't have a studio.
We had fun in that closet though.
Yeah. You know, that's the hard part too that I was talking about with Danielle the other day is I do that. I'll have a really bad day, like how you're saying, Nikki. It's like it's just so bad, and I mean, thankfully, that's why I'm like, thank you, Lord. And I know he's always with me because thankfully I have not felt suicidal or felt like that was even an option for a long time. And I'm glad because for a while there, it was a really, really bad day. And my first option was it would just be easier if I'm not here. If I'm just not alive, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I don't have, but like that hasn't been an option for me for a long time. And I'm thankful for that. But I also like, I'll sit and tell myself like it's okay, God's got you, God's got you, God, and I'll repeat it out loud over and over again until I do feel okay. But that also is not getting to the root of the issue and figuring out exactly what is wrong and how we fix that so that it doesn't keep happening. And I get into panics and then be like, it's okay, God's got you, God's got you, God's got, and I'm like panicking, like it's because we never resolved that, we never fixed it. I just waited for God to comfort me, and he did, but that issue is still there, you know?
Totally.
And I think that that's where the idea of like identifying what you can and what you can't control becomes like such a powerful thing, which I'm sure is something you've talked about a lot in therapy too, Nikki. But it's like there's a lot of things that like we can't control and they suck and they're really hard and it's painful, and there's value in acknowledging that. But what you can control is what you can focus on in those seasons. So like you don't have to figure out how to problem solve your next year if you're in chaos, if you're like struggling with each day at a time. Like all you need to do is realize what you have in control right now and then prioritize what you need to do to like get to that next day, which is another thing that we've been talking about is like prioritizing. That's like a tangible thing you can do to just get to the next day is like, okay, I feel like I have to send this email and this email and this email and this email. And I have to do this, do all of the laundry in the house and clean all the floors, whatever it is, like whatever your one day you feel like you have to do. But a lot of the times, like we're not curing cancer, you know, like it's not, everything is not an emergency. All we can do is the best with what we have. And if all we have is enough to make sure that we're going to be okay tomorrow, and so we need to rest or we need to go whatever we need to do, like we just need to prioritize that one step so that we can get to that next day. And that's where the whole time you're leaning into, okay, but God exactly. God is going to lead that one next step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. I feel like another thing too that's been super helpful is, and it actually came about through PT, was she was just laughing at me because I went in, she was like, wow, you are weak and trauma filled. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I learned that I have not been breathing properly. And like, I'll stop breathing throughout the day. Like, but I think it's a nervous system response because of the trauma that I have like lived through, to where I feel like without even knowing it, I'm always like clenched and like my muscles all tense, and I'm holding my breath, waiting for the next thing to go wrong. So for the past month, just learning how to breathe and like the basic like box breathing, and that has helped calm me down so much, and been like a huge like helpful tool to have. Even today, like I was able to do like 5 times as much as I have been able to do in PT, and she's like, I can tell like your body's really taking hold of that. And I think that's like helped a lot in the anxiety filled moments too, just like knowing how to control my breathing, and like I am in control of it and I can like breathe my way through it.
Exactly. And that's like how you can get through that next moment is by breathing and supporting your body in that way, by consciously breathing how like is best. I think I do that all the time. I hold my breath, and that's why in my workshops I'm like, I have a whole slide every single time that's like, make sure you're checking in with your breath the whole time, because when you're processing, especially, which I feel like I'm always in a state, and probably most women are always in this state of like just processing something, like I'm not breathing correctly. And so it takes that conscious effort of like, okay, I need to box breathing is like the only breathing technique that I know really well. And that I learned in domestic violence class when I went to jail. When I was 19, and brand new mom. Yeah. So I learned that there, but that's like a thing that I carry into like, well, when I remember it, honestly. So thanks for reminding me. Yes.
Do your box breathing.
Yes. I'm like, Morgan, next workshop, we're doing box breathing before we start processing.
Yeah, I would love that.
Let's do it. Well, yes, all of those things. It's so funny that like we talk about so many things. Like we just gave a whole update of our last 3 months, but the reality is like this conversation is like our everyday. So what are you experiencing every day? Well,
Yeah.
I'm experiencing like really dark thoughts sometimes. Like me too. Or jaw clenching, and
I'm like, I'm sure you would never like, you probably would never be able to walk past me out in public and think that I've moved a million times and almost lived in my car, and I constantly clench my jaw, and I like you would just never guess those things. So then it puts it into perspective for me of like, you have to imagine that everybody else is like that too. Like everybody else has their something. Like there's not, I've never met, at least yet, a person that is just great all the time, every day. Like they might have a great life, they might have great circumstances and a beautiful house and a nice family, but there's still something. There's still something.
It's so funny that you said that, because if you look at my second thing, it says the reality is that everyone is facing something. Everyone's facing struggles that are a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so hard to like not take into account too, but also at the same time, like personally, like it just becomes like an isolating thought, like what you just said, like people can walk by you and never guess that in a million years. And I feel that so much, but on like a level of like, I just want someone to be like, stop bullshitting, you're not okay. Or like, just hug me. And I'm like, but I'm all smiling. I'm like, you got this. And like, I don't know. It's isolating.
Yeah. And that's why it's lonely. And I think a lot of people feel alone, especially when they go through hard things, whether they have a big community around them or family or anything. It's weird because I do have friends and people I can lean on, like Danielle is always there for me. I have other friends that are more than willing to like just listen to me rant or talk for a long time and, you know, just let me get it all out. But even doing that and talking about it, like I still will finish that conversation and I might feel better in that moment, but I'm still going back to my own mind and I'm by myself there. Mm-hmm. And that's where I spend majority of my time, is in my own mind. And it's lonely because it's just you. And I think that's what happens with a lot of other people too. And we fixate on our own problems more than anything else because it's our problems. So then you just feel alone. You feel like nobody understands you. Nobody gets it. At least that's how I feel a lot of the times. I could try to explain it to the best I can and somebody be like, I've been through that too. And I relate to you. I know how you feel. And I'm like, no, you don't, because you don't get it. Like you're not in here. You really don't get it, you know? And that's, it is very isolating and you feel very alone in your own emotions.
Right. I totally 100% agree. And I think that's why like having conversations like this are so important, because although like you're right, we are alone in our minds. Like for those of us who are walking with Christ, we're not alone. And whatever higher power you believe in, if you believe in one, you're not alone. You have guidance, you have security, but also like there is a lot of value in recognizing that like on a human level, there is not another human being on this planet who is you. So in that sense, you are alone. You are alone. And
Right.
that's okay. Like, it's scary being, especially like if you have any abandonment issues or anything like that, like it's scary. And you feel like like you said, Nikki, like, I just want someone to hug me. I just want someone to tell me that I'm okay. I tell my husband that all the time. Like, I just need you to tell me that we're going to be okay. Like I am, and I recognize that even just having a husband, like that is a privilege and an honor, but it's also not something that everybody has, i.e. both of you. And so like, I can only imagine how much more isolating that would be to not have that person to be like, yeah, you're going to be okay. And that's why I feel like I want to always try to be that person for as many people as I can. But both of you guys are in my inner circle. So I pour into you like as much as I possibly can, because I love you both so, so much. And I want you to know that like, although I am not God and I can't be the ultimate person to assure you that you're going to be okay, like I want you to know that I believe in you. And I believe that both of you guys are going to be okay. And I want you to feel like I'm always giving you like this really big hug. And except for Morgan, I don't hug her. She hugs me.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah. But virtually pretend I'm hugging you and I'm telling you like, I can't 100% get it because I'm not you, but I know that you've been through really hard things, and we've all been through really hard things, and a lot of people are going through really hard things, but we're not alone in going through those hard things. Yes. One last thing that I really want to talk about, because I think that it adds into the feelings of loneliness, is social media. I know that
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up.
I think that we need to talk about social media, because I think like as much as we're out, there's so many people out here who are like, don't compare. And I'm one of those people, like, we don't need to compare. Like, you're a human being. And if you have people's lives constantly in your face, you are going to be like, oh, like it would be nice to have that. It would be like, it must be nice to have for me, it's like a mom. Like it must be nice to have somebody who you can trust and will be there for you, and you can tell your life to. Like, I am 27 years old and I still have that thought every single day. Yeah. But when I see somebody on social media, or like, there's so many different things.
Yeah, for me, I'm like, it must be nice that you just closed on your first house, and I never know where I'm going to be living. And must be nice that you go on 3 vacations a year and you go camping in the summertime, and like that's just a normal thing for your life. You do it all the time. Like, must be nice, because I feel like I don't ever have those opportunities. Like, right. Yeah. It's hard to not compare and contrast. But that's the thing with social media also, is that people usually only want to show their best.
It's a highlight reel. It really is a highlight reel.
And that's hard, because then that makes us even feel more isolated and like alone when we're looking at other people's lives and it seems perfect and happy and great. And they just got like all these great things going on, and you're just sitting in your little brain cell feeling miserable. Like feeling like I never get to do any of those things. And now it makes me feel like I don't work hard enough and I don't do things the right way to be able to have that. And like, then I start judging my own character and who I am. And like, it's, social media, I really feel like, as much as they try to claim, like, say it's social media, I think it's literally the most distant all of us could be from each other as humans. It really is. It just causes only distance. Like,
intentional connection. Like, if you're going to look at someone's social media and then you're actually going to reply and ask them questions and like make the effort to actually connect, then social media has the potential to be something that's like a gift or a tool or whatever. But if you're not going to do that and you're just going to sit back and watch what people post, like, why in the world, as somebody who's trying to promote something that will help people, would I sit here and tell you just on social media that I'm super financially struggling and there's a lot of weight on every decision that I'm making and how I'm showing up? Like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Why would I do that? Because yeah, but if you ask me, I've been very open. I've been asking for prayer. You cannot take somebody's social media at face value. One person that is actually, Nikki, you're really good at being vulnerable on social media.
It backfires a lot on
it. But you are, but you also are protected about it. Your page is private.
Right.
And you know.
I've tried saying, like, I feel like I've gotten it down to where people that follow me, like, know what they're in for. That, like, the couple weeks ago, I had someone report one of my stories, and then it happened, like, the very next day, and it wasn't even like a mental health topic or anything. I was just giving a perspective on, well, I guess it was about suicide, but I was giving my own perspective on Twitch's death. And I just, like, wrote out a very heartfelt thing. And I was like, you never know what someone's facing. Because everyone was like, how selfish and stuff. So I just gave my own perspective. And someone flagged it. And then I got all these notifications saying, someone's really worried about you. And, like, all this. And I'm like, why follow me if you're just going to report my shit, like, time and time again?
And also, like, you're right in sharing that message. You never know what somebody is going through at all. And Twitch's death is a great reminder of that. Whether you have conspiracy theories or not, whatever at the end of the day, that situation happens every single day in our country alone, not to mention the world. People commit suicide who you would never expect to do that because of this, like, because of people just think that you're fine. And I mean, that's the case with any post that anyone posts. Like, even models on Instagram, you have no idea. Maybe they had a terrible day. They just got a really good picture.
Right. I think when Instagram first started, like, it was for the pictures. Like, but then, like, it started once influencers became a thing, and so now it's just like this thing of, like, trying to outdo one another, or, like, and if you see those posts and people are living their best lives, then it's like isolation and, like, oh my gosh, why am I failing at this? And it just becomes very self-critical, and, like, you don't feel worthy, and it just leads you down a different little rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I think it's a good reminder of, like, especially when you see somebody who you knew previously and they were a certain way and now you follow them now, like, if there's been growth in their life, that wasn't for lack of effort. Like, a lot of people think that things are just handed to them in general, like, whether it's your living situation or your car or whatever, because there's always going to be different people either looking up or looking down on you, right? There's very few of us that are looking straight across the table. And really, we all have the ability to sit and look straight across the table, but we also have our human emotions, and jealousy is a thing. And but, like, nobody just suddenly heals. Nobody just suddenly gets better. Like, it really does take effort, and effort that you're not going to see or hear about most of the time. Like, the silent battles, it's not like you're just out here, Nikki, really struggling with and floundering, right? Like, you are checking in with people. You've been intentional to have therapists of different kinds, whether it's PT or mental health. And Morgan, like, we're checking in all the time. When you've gotten to points where you're like, this is not okay, like, you've done the things to make sure that you're supporting yourself, but nobody would know that. Nobody's going to see or know that. But that has taken intentional effort on each one of our parts, and pretty much every person in this planet who wants to grow and wants to heal. And, like, we need to remember that when we look at another human being, especially if we're looking up at them and we're like, I want something like you have. I want a house like you. I want a car like you. I want financial stability like you. It's like, we have to check ourselves and remember that like we don't have the whole story. So like what lessons can we learn from each other so that we can, one, remember that we're not alone. There are very few people on this earth who have something that you want that didn't work for it. And we're created for authentic connection, but not with everyone. Nobody can be authentic with everyone. Not 100%. We can sit down and have conversations like this, but the reality is that the impact doesn't go unless we get a ton of messages. The impact doesn't go beyond the three of us, because we're the ones that are here listening and being there for each other. That's the power of having a round table like this, is like, let's check in and talk about the hard stuff. And if it encourages someone else, great. If this just helps us to remember the truth and like be empowered to keep walking through life and conquering and developing resilience, even though we might not want to be any more resilient. Lord, we know we are strong warriors, but can you give us some easier battles, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's honestly, that's why I really do appreciate your creative processing workshop. Like, you know me, I am not the type of person to like go into meetings, groups, or be in like a community like that, you know, just be in community, period. Like, I've always said I'm not a friendly neighbor. Like, you think when you move into a house and you're going to be there for years and years and years, you want to get to know your neighbors and stuff. I'm like, no, I'm just fine with waving from the driveway and going inside my house. Like, you know, it takes somebody coming up to me or pushing me. And that's one of the biggest things I got from, I'm pretty sure it was the last one or maybe the prior one, is it was somebody had brought up, like, you know, when you talked about loving your own self and really being able to truly love yourself so you can properly like love others and stuff like that. And I think it was somebody else in the community who mentioned, you know, we can, or maybe it was you, Danielle, that mentioned, like, you know, we think other people are worthy. We look at other people and say, but you're a child of God, you are worthy, you are loved, and but we don't do that for our own selves. How do we look at all these other human beings that God created and we say, you are loved, you are worthy? Why can't we do that for our own self? Why do you not feel that for your own self? If everybody else is, and you feel that way for everybody else, why are you so different? And we're not. We just need to find that and figure that out and really accept that. I think it's hard to accept love from our own selves.
Right.
And
well, and it's hard to
that's what I hope to learn in your creative like processing workshop, is really learning how to love my own self.
Yeah.
And know that I am worthy, just like I feel about you and Nikki and everybody else that comes onto your podcast. Like, you know, how we feel about everybody else, and God loves you and you are worthy. We need to believe that for our own selves as well, because we are. Yeah. We genuinely are.
And that's been my prayer over these workshops. And honestly, it's been such an awesome opportunity to just pray over each individual person who's processing live. Like, I just continue to pray that like whatever you are seeking as your primary block, like that the Lord will use this as a tangible way. Like, you come to this workshop and you do the processing. I'm setting certain amount of time. I'm telling you about a topic, but if you want to process something else, that's fine. But every month we have intentional time where you get to just work on you. You just need to work on you. I know I need that. And I think that the Lord has been really faithful to just guide this process and like show me how to just give people space to do what they need to do, and he'll work through it. I can give you my process, I can give you my structure, but ultimately it's you who needs to show up for you. And if I can just put together a monthly meeting where people can just commit to showing up for themselves and not necessarily pouring into your business if you're a business owner, or pouring into your children, but pouring into yourself, then I think that God's going to do huge things with that. And I think he already has started to. So thank you for saying that. I'm excited about these workshops. I really am trying to just hold them with like open hands and let the Lord do what he wants with them in the lives of everyone who comes. But yeah, it's every single month we're going to do that. And I know that God is going to be faithful to show up in those times, and he's going to show you how to love yourself. Oh, I love you. I love both of you guys. And Nikki is actually in the community as well. Obviously, her life, she's got a lot of variables as well. So whether she can come live or not is up in the air, but she is. she's in the community, and I'm claiming her.
Thanks. I'm claimed.
Yes, you're claimed. I know. I told Morgan the other day, I was like, remember how in middle school and high school we were always like, I don't want labels. And now I'm like, I need all the labels. Give me all the labels.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, this has been a really awesome roundtable, and I think we should do this more often.
Definitely. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And for everybody listening, I hope this conversation makes you feel a little less alone. I know it's hard to not feel alone because I struggle with that more than anything, but I hope it makes you feel a little less alone. And, you know, like Danielle and I talked about the other day, the cliche saying, it's okay to not be okay. It really is. It really is. It doesn't mean the end of the world. Doesn't mean everything's over and everything's ruined, but it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. You're allowed to be human.
Yeah.
And sometimes humans have bad days. Yeah.
Just keep letting love in.
Keep letting love in.
Keep letting love in and keep talking to the Lord, because he might not respond immediately, but he is listening. He's listening always. So
that's God.
Yes. Well, with that being said, I cannot have Morgan on this show without closing up with a prayer. So, Nikki, we are going to pray. If you don't have to say anything, but because Morgan is going to lead it. Okay, let's go.
Thanks.
You have to lead. Okay.
Off the hook. Panic, internal panic.
Yeah. And I apologize in advance to anybody who prays properly. That's not my jam. That's not how I talk to the Lord. I don't know. Like sometimes people they say the Lord's Prayer or they do it in a proper way. I talk to the Lord like we're friends because I don't know how else to talk to him. I don't. It gets awkward for me and I get nervous when I talk to the Lord because I'm like, oh gosh, it's God.
I have ADHD too, and I think I have squirrel moments, and I'm like, baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's how we talk. You know what? This is real life roundtable. So however you really pray.
This is how I really pray and talk to God. Except for when I'm crying, it gets more serious. I'm not going to cry, but yeah, this is for real. Okay. Anyway, dear Lord, thank you first and foremost for everything. Our lives are so blessed, even beyond all of the struggles and confusion and the hard, bad stuff. I know I'm always blessed. We are all blessed with just life and to have you. And thank you for that. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for Danielle and Nikki. And I pray that we can take what we need from this conversation. I pray the listeners take what they need and that they feel more comfort in their own struggles. And I pray that maybe you could give me a little bit less struggles, but if you don't want to right now, that's fine. I get it. I'm going to pray to you. And yeah, I truly am blessed. I feel very blessed right now. And thank you for that. And I pray all the best for Danielle and Nikki, that they have a good rest of their day, a good week, and that you help them through all of their struggles. Yeah, I'm just very thankful. Yeah. And we want you to have a good day. And I think that you do always have good days, but I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions.
Well, you are God, the source of goodness. So I praise you for every good and bad day. But if I have good and bad days, and
you might have bad days.
If you have bad days, we pray that today is not one of them, that today is a good day.
And not tomorrow either. Preferably the next day after that also.
Also, thank you for our ADHD superpowers. Please help us to harness them into superpowers. And I specifically want to pray healing over Morgan and Nikki's brains.
Yes.
and their heads. And for real,
Unscramble
Lord,
me.
unscramble them. Help us to walk confidently into the next day that you have called us into, and lead our steps, direct us, love us. We know that you already do love us, and we thank you for that. But yeah, we are grateful, and lead, guide, direct, and do the same for all of the Created Worthy listeners. And thank you for Morgan as well, because she prayed over us, and she's really awesome. And I'm really grateful for her, and I'm really grateful for Nikki. All right. Back to Morgan. Over and out.
Hey God, it's me again, Morgan. I'm sorry. You know, Danielle, she has to take over. We know that she has
Help me with my
management issues, and can you please help her with that? Thank you. And yeah, thank you. For real, thank you. We love you. Yeah. Please have a great day. We are going to do our best to have a great day. Please bless that. And
you are the ultimate worthy one. You are worthy.
We love you, God. We love you. I'm one of your biggest fans.
I am too.
Grace.
In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
All right, you guys.
Snaps for Jesus.
Snaps for Jesus. And then you are both, and so am I. We are created worthy. Thanks for tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. If anything in today's show resonated with you, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it also expands the impact, messages, and stories that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. If you're on social media, I want to personally invite you to continue the conversations about these important topics that we're talking about. You can find Created Worthy on both Instagram and Facebook by just typing in Created Worthy Podcast. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, you are created worthy.